Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and welcome to the House of Mouse headlines brought to you by laughingplace.com, your up-to-date resource for the latest Disney news every day of the week. This episode is being released on February 10th, 2021, and here's what's been going on in the world of Disney recently. A Wakanda Disney Plus series is on the way, the streaming release of a beloved version of Cinderella is just around the corner, Disney Springs is now home to a new candy shop, and more. It's all coming your way right after this. If you're a fan of Disney merch, you'll just love Who's Its and What's Its. For 10 years now, Who's Its and What's Its has been creating some of the most unique Disney-inspired apparel that you can find. I'm personally a big fan of their Neverland beanies. If you haven't checked out their site yet, do yourself a favor and visit whositswhatsits.com, spelled like whositswhatsits.com, and take some time to browse around. Plus, Disney Coast to Coast listeners get 15% off their entire order simply by using the coupon code DCTC. So head to whositswhatsits.com or click the link in this episode's description and use the code DCTC to save 15% on your entire order today.
Hear the latest news from the Walt Disney Company in today's House of Mouse headlines.
First up this week, while Walt Disney World did not hold its typical post-Super Bowl parade, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski of the champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers were still featured in the latest "I'm going to Disney World" commercial after the game, with the two stars both saying that iconic phrase. Making good on that promise, Gronkowski got to enjoy an afternoon at the resort this past Monday, while Disney says they're still working on plans for Super Bowl 55 MVP Brady to visit in the coming months. In honor of the Bucs' win, Cinderella Castle at the Magic Kingdom was also lit up in the team's colors before transitioning to blue in tribute to healthcare heroes. Meanwhile, during the game's broadcast, Disney fans were treated to a new look at Raya and the Last Dragon, a trailer for Marvel's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and a spot for the Disney streaming bundle. You can catch all of those commercials and more online now. It looks as though Marvel fans will be exploring a lot more of Wakanda in the coming years. In addition to the already announced Black Panther 2, it's now been revealed that director Ryan Coogler is developing a Disney Plus series about the fictional nation. This comes as Coogler's Proximity Media has been inked to a 5-year overall exclusive television deal with Disney, under which he'll create new series for the company's various brands. In a statement about the deal, Coogler said, "It's an honor to be partnering with the Walt Disney Company. Working with them on Black Panther was a dream come true. As avid consumers of television, we couldn't be happier to be launching our television business with Bob Iger, Dana Walden, and all the amazing studios under the Disney umbrella. We look forward to learning, growing, and building a relationship with audiences all over the world through the Disney platforms." In other Disney Plus news, reports suggest that Scrubs and Garden State star Zach Braff is in talks to join the upcoming Cheaper by the Dozen reboot coming to the service. Braff would be playing the father to a blended, multiracial family, with Gabrielle Union already cast for the project. Cheaper by the Dozen is set to arrive on Disney Plus in 2022. The famed Mighty Ducks are nearly ready to take the ice once again. Recently, Disney announced that the new series, The Mighty Ducks Game Changers, would premiere on Disney Plus next month. The show takes place nearly 30 years after the original film and finds stars Lauren Graham and Emilio Estevez putting together a new underdog hockey team. The Mighty Ducks Game Changers will kick off a 10-episode season on March 26th. When you think of Cinderella, do you think of the 1950 animated classic, the 2015 live-action remake, or perhaps the 1997 version that aired on ABC as part of the wonderful world of Disney? If you chose the lattermost option, then I have some good news for you. Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella will be available to stream on Disney Plus starting February 12th. The announcement was made by film star Brandy Norwood on ABC's The View last week, where she happened to appear with co-star Whoopi Goldberg. Bernadette Peters, Jason Alexander, and the late Whitney Houston also star in the musical film, which has become a fan favorite since its original airing. You can relive Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella for yourself on Disney Plus later this week. And if you want to hear my thoughts on the TV special before then, listen to episode 515 of Disney Coast to Coast. With Walt Disney Animation Studios' Raya and the Last Dragon debuting in theaters and on Disney Plus via Premiere Access on March 5th, fans can now buy tickets or pre-order the film. Like with the previous Premiere Access title, Mulan, Raya and the Last Dragon will be available to Disney Plus subscribers for an additional $29.99. Those who purchase this option will have unlimited access to the film, just as they would any other title on the platform. Meanwhile, it's also been revealed that the movie will be available to all Disney Plus subscribers at no additional cost beginning June 4th. Following the debut of Pixar's Soul on Disney Plus this past December, the film is now getting a physical media release. The Pete Docter-directed film will be available on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD on March 23rd. Soul's digital and physical releases will include exclusive, never-before-seen deleted scenes, as well as audio commentary by Pete Docter, Kemp Powers, and Dana Murray. Additionally, fans can find the film packaged as a collectible steelbook at Best Buy, and packaged with a limited edition gallery book at Target. In the meantime, you can screen Pixar's Soul right now on Disney+. Speaking of Soul, the film has now inspired a new exhibit inside Epcot's American Adventure Rotunda. Soul of Jazz, an American Adventure, opened to Walt Disney World guests last week, paying tribute to the genre's most influential and acclaimed musicians, while also offering a look at how different cities across the nation put their own spin on the music. In conjunction with the exhibit, guests can also play a new music trivia challenge in the Play Disney Parks app. Walt Disney World is now home to another world. Eminem's World, that is. A new location celebrating the classic candy that melts in your mouth and not in your hand recently opened its doors at Disney Springs. Not only will guests come across all kinds of colorful candy as well as gifts and apparel at this location, but they'll also find exclusive Mickey and Minnie Mouse M&M designs and more. Eminem's World is now open in Disney Springs, so be sure to pop in on your next visit to Walt Disney World. Over the past few weekends, while Disneyland Paris' theme park remains closed, the resort has opened its World of Disney location to guests. However, starting this past weekend, updated government health instructions led to the capacity of the store being further reduced. Additionally, a limit of 50 products per transaction has now been put into place. At this time, World of Disney at Disneyland Paris is set to be open on February 12th, 13th, and 14th, and the theme parks are currently slated to reopen on April 2nd. At the Disneyland Resort, the former home of the Rainforest Cafe is continuing its transformation into a jungle resistance base, including the addition of Rey's speeder from The Force Awakens parked outside of the location. On that note, the Star Wars Trading Post is set to officially open on February 19th, but before that, Legacy Pass holders, meaning those who had active annual passes when the parks closed last March, will have an opportunity to make a reservation for a special preview event between February 16th and 18th. It looks like more areas of Disney California Adventure will soon be opening, as the Disneyland Resort is planning a ticketed food and beverage experience currently anticipated to debut in mid-March. In a letter to cast members, Disneyland Resort President Ken Potrock said that these events would be focused on food and beverage offerings from around the resort, the latest merchandise, and include carefully crafted entertainment experiences. Additionally, the event will be offered multiple days a week. As a result, Potrock says that more than 1,000 cast members will be able to return to work. Ahead of these planned events, dining at DCA recently reopened as well. As of February 5th, alfresco dining at the Carthay Circle Lounge, as well as quick service options, Smoke Jumper's Grill, and Award Wieners are now available. Also, if you're headed to Buena Vista Street, you may also find a limited selection of merchandise celebrating the recent 20th anniversary of Disney California Adventure. These new items are available at Elias & Company, as well as World of Disney while supplies last. A bipartisan bill in the California State Legislature seeks to speed up the reopening timeline for theme parks, including those at the Disneyland Resort. California Assembly Bill 420, co-sponsored by Fullerton Democrat Sharon Quirk Silva and Santa Clarita Republican Suzette Martinez Valadares, would allow larger theme parks to reopen when their respective counties reach Tier 3, the orange tier, instead of waiting until Tier 4, the yellow tier, as is currently mandated. As a reminder, the existing guidelines allow smaller parks to reopen at Tier 3, so this bill would put larger parks in the same category. It should be noted that any bill passed would still need to be signed by Governor Gavin Newsom. Additionally, at this time, Orange County, Los Angeles County, and most other counties in the state remain in Tier 1, the purple tier. Now, folks, for the first time, I am welcoming someone else into my House of Mouse Headlines episode. If you haven't heard yet, this season, whenever there's a bit of news that I feel is worth a deeper discussion, Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com will be joining me to discuss that particular news. It won't necessarily be in every House of Mouse Headlines episode, but today we have some stuff to discuss. So welcome, Kyle Burbank.
Thank you for having me in your House of Mouse. Should I take off my shoes?
No, you're good. You can just get comfortable. Whatever makes you comfortable, all right?
Sounds good.
So sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable in here, and probably even more so with our discussions in the future. But today we got to talk about, now this is some news that, isn't super recent, but it had happened during the DCTC hiatus. So we got to talk about the Disneyland Annual Passport program being discontinued. Yeah. This was some pretty big news. I want to know, what was your initial reaction when you heard this?
I think at this point I kind of saw it coming because what they did in Tokyo was somewhat similar. And as we're nearing we're not quite to the point where the park's been closed for a year, but as that date loomed and there's still just no idea when the parks will be able to reopen in earnest, I think I kind of saw the writing on the wall a little bit more. It's not to say that it wasn't shocking when I heard it, but I was just like, okay, yeah.
I was totally shocked, and then, very quickly was like, oh, but that totally makes sense. Why wouldn't they? First of all, I feel like this is something that was probably going to happen, pandemic or not, probably a few years down the line. It seems like they were trying to figure out a way to get rid of it without an uproar. And listen, you can't have much of an uproar considering the current situation. It's, it makes sense.
Yeah, it actually did serve as a nice way for them to kind of flush out the current system. But we definitely saw them trying to make changes. Obviously, they had the Flex Pass, which based on what we've heard so far, it looks like that's kind of what they're hoping to do in the future is more of that. So obviously, they probably would have liked more time to try to push people over to that product and test it out more. But if they get a opportunity to flush out the lines, then I guess they're going to take that.
Yeah, because the thing, everybody's got to keep in mind is whenever Disneyland reopens, there, even if we're 25% is way less than 25% of Magic Kingdom here at Disneyland. So, if annual pass holders were allowed, this park would be at capacity every single day for a very long time. So, by flushing out the system, it's going to allow for, obviously individual ticket sales and such. And it would have been chaos otherwise. Another thing that I initially thought that I think I'm 100% wrong on this, but with that year looming, I did think to myself, if there was some sort of legal obligation for Disney to return people's money who had paid it in full up front or whatever, it's probably not the case, but it is something that I thought about initially. Annual passes at Disneyland Resort were problematic. The thing that concerns me most, I know they said there's going to be some sort of membership program, but the free parking or the parking that's included with your pass is a big consideration for me anyway. I wouldn't even consider buying a pass if it didn't come with free parking, because it's $25+ every time you go. That's a lot of money.
Definitely. And that's something that they've been trying to phase out for a while now. And we saw Universal Studios do that, remember, where you can only park before 5 or something silly like that. So they realize how important of a perk that is. Both theme parks do. And I think that is something that's gonna go the way, or maybe they'll have to sell a separate membership for that. And it's not just going to be an upgrade. It might be a bit pricier. But to your point about holding the money, I'm not sure it's a legal thing per se, because they did give pass holders the opportunity to cancel. But I can imagine from an accounting perspective, just holding the money that long and then figuring out the extensions. And plus, even when they reopen, are they going to credit pass holders because no one's going to be able to get in? So I think it's probably, as that year comes, it's probably just a good time for them to be like, okay, we can't keep doing this.
Yeah, so it makes sense. The other thing that I'm concerned about is like the Premier Pass. I'm hearing that the only people who will have a Premier Pass in the future will be Club 33 members. And I got to be honest, that kind of bums me out because I was getting ready to get a new pass and I was 100% going to get the Premier Pass. I only had it once before, but if you're going any longer than a week to Walt Disney World in the course of a year, the Premier Pass just totally made sense.
Yeah, and I remember when the Premier Pass was like $800 the first time I got it. Now it's like $25 or something.
Yeah, I paid $799 when I got it like right when it came out. I got it, and you know, it was definitely worth it that year. I knew I was going to Florida for at least a week, so man, that's a bummer if that's going to only be very, very exclusive. I'm kind of bummed about that.
Yeah, and I know that they've already been surveying what they're calling legacy pass holders about what the new product, the new membership will look like. And they're kind of throwing out all sorts of different catches and price points. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. But I think basically it's going to be, the bottom line is it's going to be like the Flex Pass, where you're going to have to make reservations except for maybe a few gimmies. And that'll be it. No more every day.
And if it's a membership, does that mean that it's not going to be like for a 1 year period? Like everybody's going to have to pay monthly probably, and it'll continue for as long until you cancel essentially.
That's
Otherwise,
a really good point. Except
I mean,
that
what's
I think
the difference?
I think the terminology, I think just to differentiate it from the annual pass, but also I don't know if there's something that they're just thinking like an annual pass implies that you get in every day, which is not the case because obviously there's blockouts and stuff. But I wonder if they're just thinking that terminology is more like that. Just like, you know, parks that aren't open year round call it seasonal passes and things like that. But I think in this case, it's probably more of just like we need to differentiate these products. So we're going to call it a membership. You get perks and you get this instead of being like something that guarantees you admission.
The interesting thing is like Six Flags Magic Mountain, they offer memberships and season passes. And it does get a little confusing, differentiate, but like they have both and they have for quite a while. The other thing I thought though is by changing the name, like let's face it, by this point, annual passes would have risen in cost already. They were doing it once or twice a year even. And to just reinstate what they already had and then immediately start charging people more money because they're like, hey, it's time to raise the price. People would have had a fit and people would have had a right to have had the fit. But by sunsetting that program and starting a brand new one with a new name, there will be less comparison between the two and they can charge what they want at that point. And I think that that's, you know, obviously good for the company as well. So I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to do it. As shocking as the news was, I think of the first 6 months whenever Disneyland reopens, I don't think it'll make that big of a difference due to how limited it will most likely be as far as capacity is concerned. But after 6 months, it'll be interesting to see, like, maybe is Disneyland going to be really quiet again? Because there aren't people who can just go, you know, on a weeknight after work.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to definitely change the landscape of that park and the makeup of that park in terms of what the guest percentage is of day guests versus annual pass holders or members. But I think it'll take some adjusting. Like, obviously, there's going to be an adjustment period anyway because of the limitations that they're going to have to put in place for COVID reasons. But I think once those are up, I think it'll eventually, I don't think they're going to hurt, honestly. Like, I think they're still going to hit their attendance goals after whatever a reasonable ramp up time is to get back to a place where that's normal.
Yeah, I think individual ticket sales will definitely skyrocket for them, which in the long run is probably really good for them. So the thing that's going to be interesting, though, is I think we're going to start seeing, you know, a lot of like those annual pass holder, specialty pins or T-shirts or whatever, those things that people would go to the parks just to get in line to buy those. Those will probably all start moving to downtown Disney, is my guess, because if you can't get in the park, like you're not going to buy I sure as heck hope people aren't going to buy a one-day ticket to go buy a pin. You know what I mean?
Well, they are going to have blockout tickets apparently, but no, I think you're right. I think, they can do those things all day. So if they can make people happy by selling them more things, I think they're going to do that. And then as far as, you can kind of think of whatever this new system is going to be like a single rider line. They're going to take people as they need them. And they need to know when, we're at capacity. Okay, hold the line. Okay, now you guys can come in. So they're going to control it. They already have calendars with the different prices and stuff. So they're just going to be doing the same thing for annual pass holders.
Yeah, good point. Now let's move on to another bit of news that honestly upset me more than the annual pass news, and that is Disney's Magical Express ending at the end of this year. And I gotta tell you, as a tourist coming to Orlando, Disney's Magical Express is one of the most convenient services that Disney has ever offered. I loved the whole them taking care of your luggage, you not having to go to the luggage carousel. They'll just pick it up for you and bring it to your room 3 or 4 hours later. That obviously has gone away because of COVID, and I accepted that on my trip in October. But now, that's never coming back from what I can tell. And the whole Disney's Magical Express thing, they're saying it's because of Lyft and Uber services. I don't buy that. I cannot imagine that many people are yeah, let me pay for a Lyft or Uber instead of taking this free transpo that frankly isn't that difficult to deal with. I've never waited more than a half hour for a bus.
Okay, so I've never actually done Magical Express, and everyone raves about it like you do. I know the idea of them taking your bag and everything. It sounds awesome. But as I looked into it more, I totally see why it's going away, and I'm glad I didn't do it. At a certain point, it made sense, but now, you're saying, they're citing Uber and Lyft, I would so much rather just pay $30 to take an Uber and Lyft and go straight to my hotel rather than wait in line to get a bus and then potentially, depending on which hotel you're staying at, drive all around property to get dropped off. I'd rather just go straight there. I know it's different for families and stuff who might have to need a larger Uber or whatever, but I mean, for me personally, I used to take Super Shuttle all the time, and then I'm wait a minute. This sucks. I don't like being sixth in line to get dropped off and going all over town. I want to just go straight home or straight to my room. So personally, I no love lost, but I totally see what you're saying in terms of, obviously it's a free option. So that's attractive. The idea of them taking your bags was great. So if that's going away, I feel like that's a big part of it. And I think maybe the sustained popularity of why you're okay, well, if people are taking Ubers and Lyfts, then why is it still so popular? And I think the answer is just, well, if it's included, people will take it. But if it's not, then maybe they don't value it as much as they should. Maybe that wasn't what was making them stay on property. It was more just, it was available to them, so they took it.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I do think we're going to see minivans be offered, right, for this to go from the airport. That's my guess, is minivans will be probably double or triple the price of Lyft or Uber, but they might be hey, and we'll take care of your luggage or something like that. I always expected to eventually be charged for Magical Express, which I didn't like the idea of, but I would have paid the $10 or whatever versus a Lyft, which would have been 3 times the price. I honestly liked it. It was a fun start to the vacation. I liked the videos they showed on there. It never felt like an arduous process for me. So I always liked it. There's kind of a part of me that feels like they're also encouraging people to rent cars to get that parking money. But if they're doing that, I really hope it bites them in the end, because if I'm renting a car, guess what? Guaranteed I'm going to Universal and or SeaWorld or wherever. There's no way I'm staying 100% on Walt Disney World property if you're making me buy a rental car while I'm there. I don't know. I feel like they've got something in the works to replace it, because I can't imagine this solution. I also heard just their contract was up with Mears. So maybe they're going to have a contract with another company and call it, I don't know, something different. Disney's Magic Carpet or whatever the heck they want to call it. I don't know. It's a weird move to me, and it feels short-sighted, but I'm sure there's something I don't know about that makes it make sense for them, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. No, I'm sure, like I said, I know there's a lot of people who enjoy that Disney bubble. From the time that you land at MCO you're in the Disney bubble and you don't ever have to leave it because everything you need will be provided to you while you're on property. But yeah, like I said, haven't done it, so haven't technically experienced it. But just looking at it, I'm like, okay, yeah, personally, not for me.
Now, this train that they're talking about that's going to be going from like Miami to the Orlando airport, and one of the stops is supposed to be Disney Springs.
Mm-hmm.
That won't work because you can't have a bunch of people on a train with their luggage going to all different resort hotels, all being dumped in Disney Springs. Like, that's not an option. And it's a year later, supposedly, if not later.
That's true. But no, it's funny because it actually reminds me, having visited the foreign parks, that is how I get to the resort, is by public train. And actually, it reminds me a lot of the comparison. When we've been to Paris, we usually take the bullet train from de Gaulle to Disney. But the last time we went, we took a bus just to try it out because they have not the equivalent of Magical Express. It's much more... It's licensed, obviously, but it feels more separated than the Mears and Disney connection was. But anyway, we did that, and that's why I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'd much rather take that train. But
really? You'd rather take the train than the bus? Really? Interesting.
In Paris, at least. I mean, I don't know how it is how it's going to be in Orlando, but definitely in Paris. Like, yeah, we got off the bus. We're like, okay, we're not doing that again.
Wow. Okay, you have a bus aversion. That's really interesting.
Well, I think, it's just
you've seen Speed.
It's still about an hour away. Yeah, well, if they go over 55, that would be better.
Oh man.
But no, it's just the thing of having to. I'd much rather be dropped off at a central. So in the case of Paris, they actually do drop you off at their equivalent of downtown Disney, and then we walk over to our hotel.
Yeah, but those are all within a close proximity. We're not talking Walt Disney World miles away.
Yeah, Springs is that's where it gets interesting, is how are you going to filter those people out? I guess maybe more people will be staying at Saratoga. Maybe that's going to be the hot new hotel. But other than that, yeah.
The other thing that bothers me about it, whether or not you like Disney's Magical Express, it was an extra bit of magic. And as it is, we're losing those touches of magic in the park for very good reason. I understand why happenings can't happen right now and live shows have to go away and all that stuff. So whenever bits of those extra magical touches that exist are going away that don't need to, I'm getting even doubly frustrated now because I'm like, please, I might as well go stay at Universal Studios, and save some money if I'm not going to get those extra magic perks. And Disney's Magical Express was an extra magic perk. I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're going to do about it. I don't think we've heard the last about it. I think there's going to be something coming, like the annual passholder program. You got to get rid of the annual passholder program and start a membership program with a new name so that when the price is a lot higher, you're getting less complaints. Perhaps get rid of that thing that's been free for a billion years, bring in something new with a new name and say, and that's $15 a person to get on or whatever. And then there's less uproar. I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but I feel like something has to replace it because just saying, yeah, get Lyft or Uber does not sound like a very Disney way of treating their guests. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Mears is still going to run their own buses, but who knows what level of integration they'll be able to have as far as the baggage handling and stuff. And obviously, they're not going to do that complimentary because why would they?
Yeah, I wonder if Mears will still be handling the buses. I assume these will still exist. The buses that go from the Walt Disney World resorts to the Disney Cruise Line port. I'm pretty sure those are Mears buses as well. I wonder what's going to happen with those, if anything. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Who knew I'd get so upset about a bus?
Who knew that I was going to oppose you so vehemently? No.
Well, listen, you have a bus aversion. I apparently love them. In real life, I don't really like them, but Disney's Magical Express is magical. And as a person who doesn't want to just be dropped off in the middle of Florida with no way to get to my hotel, I have a problem with it. But we'll see what happens. We'll see.
I will say the only time I got lost while in an Uber, actually that's not true. One of the main times I got lost when I was in an Uber was when I was going to Walt Disney World, but that was during a race. So I give the guy a little bit of credit because a bunch of the other exits or entrances were closed off. But yeah, I ended up having to get a refund when it took me an hour to get from Champions Gate to Magic Kingdom.
I am always amazed when I hop in an Uber at Walt Disney World and I'm like, hey, take me to Universal. And they're like, okay. And like, they don't know how to get there. I'm like, are you serious? Like, do you know where you work? That's a crazy, I didn't ask you to take me to Busch Gardens. I told you to take me to Universal. It's crazy to me that sometimes they just don't know.
While we're talking about Ubers and Lyfts, I will give a pro tip if you're visiting Disneyland sometime in the future, which is don't go to that little 15-minute wait area to try to get an Uber or Lyft. Just walk to like the Denny's just a couple of blocks and it'll be so much faster because they can't get in there. It takes them forever. So they'll be very appreciative and you'll save a lot of money and time if you just walk a little bit down Harbor Boulevard.
Excellent. Well, then let's end that on a pro tip. Thank you for that, Kyle. Thank you for joining me for the House of Mouse headlines. You will be back in the future when there is some exciting news.
Hopefully it'll be happier news.
Yes, hopefully. Yes, let's get some good news to talk about. Yeah, let's do that. Next time, happier news. Fantastic. To read more about any and all of the stories you've heard here today, simply visit the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com or find the link to the show notes in this episode's description. You've heard the news, and now I want to hear what you have to say about it. Call 818-860-2569, leave a voicemail sharing your thoughts, and you may just hear yourself on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast. Once again, that's 818-860-2569, or simply look in this episode's description for that phone number. Now, coming up on next week's episode, it's all about the brilliant Imagineer Joe Rohde as we celebrate his recent retirement and contributions to the Walt Disney Company. And if you haven't yet listened to last week's episode, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's all about Disney California Adventure as we celebrated its 20th anniversary. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. As always, thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. You make all of this possible. If you enjoy these conversations about Disney and have the means, please consider becoming a member of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC for far less than the cost of a churro. Plus, you'll gain rewards. You can find that link in this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.